It's time for us to create the StreamNative BYOC Pulsar cluster using the StreamNative UI. Just to show you that the cloud connection and cloud environment already exist, I'm going to go up here to the upper right corner, go to Cloud Environments, show you that here's the cloud environment that I'm going to be deploying into in the US East 1 region. And it uses this Cloud Connections shared AWS, which you can see here is currently connected. Going back to the dashboard, I'm going to click on New to create a new instance, and Deploy BYOC is going to be an option for us here. I'm going to create a new instance called My Instance, and you need to select which cloud connection you're going to be using. I only have one here, and this is the connection again into my cloud provider. Go to Cluster Location. I'm going to call this My Cluster, and here you select your cloud environment that you're going to be using. I'm going to leave mine as multi-availability zone. Again, if you want to use single availability zone, this would be for lower cost and those clusters that don't require high availability. Under cluster operations, I'm going to be using the rapid channel here. Here's some definitions. If you're going to be testing Kafka, it's always recommended here to be using the rapid channel. That'll be an enabled feature. And then here are the various options that you can enable or disable on the cluster. I'm going to stay on the basic settings tab here and stick with our smallest available cluster size. And then I'll click Finish to start deploying the cluster. At that point, it's going to bring up a page that's going to say we're deploying your cluster. It's going to go through and show you when Zookeeper's done, Bookkeeper's done, and the brokers are done. But I'm going to go back to the dashboard to show you what it looks like as it's deploying. Here it shows the instance is still deploying. If I click on it, and then if the cluster isn't selected here, you can always select My Cluster. I'll go over to Pulsar Clusters here on the right, and you can get back to that deploying page so you can see the details of the deployment as it's in progress. After about 10 to 15 minutes, you should see that the instance is now showing a green dot here. That means that the cluster is now ready for use. If I go ahead and click on the instance, you can also then click on your cluster here if it isn't automatically selected. Go down to Pulsar Clusters. If you go into details, you can see the details of the cluster that you just deployed, as well as the access points. These are the URLs that you're going to be using to connect to that cluster. These are only going to be available over the public internet if you deployed your cloud environment as a public endpoint. Otherwise, these will not be accessible over the internet. If you ever need to edit your cluster configuration in the future, you can always click on Edit Cluster up here on the top right. You can go into your cluster sizing, edit your cluster sizing, and when you click Finish, it'll resize your cluster.